Testing, check, check, 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the Ninja Robot Studio LLC stream, where I play video games and VR experiences and talk through them from a UX designer's perspective. Game development has a heavy and direct influence on XR development, so it makes sense that we would study game design and to give us a greater understanding of how to design quality immersive experiences. The plan is to have all of you in chat participate, and that way we can learn together. And there are a lot of classes out there on UX design and UX processes, and more classes are coming out around designing for XR. And think of this as a kind of an unofficial and less academic and less expensive university labs class for XR, for UX for XR. And we're going to use critical thinking as in our design analysis as we play through these games, and my goal is to help you gain experience in this process as you participate in the chat. And if you check out the widgets on my Twitch page under the About section, you'll see a section called Rose, Thorn, Bud, and we'll be using this method each session to think about the games we play. And it is experimental, and I'll learn and iterate on the format as I go and as you guys give me feedback. So please feel free to do that. And for those that are watching on the on demand later and you're not on Twitch right now, let me share with you what I'm talking about on Twitch. So this is the Twitch page on the About section. If you scroll down a little bit, you will see this section called Rose, Thorn, Bud, and this is an overview of this process, and this is what we'll be using. And while we're here, I'll just talk about some of the recommended reading I have for you, and that is the UX for XR Toolkit, which is my website, where you can learn more about the UX best practices for XR. It has videos, and you can see how other people have solved problems through patterns, and I talk a little bit about how the UX process and testing for usability testing differs from your traditional 2D, so you can check that out on my website. And So now we will also be using The Gamer's Brain by Celia Hodent as kind of our textbook. I need to grab that because I haven't grabbed it. This book is the one we'll be using to help with our analysis. And then the VR book is also a really good book since this is about XR and it is a more pricey book. It is a textbook. So if you had to choose between two, I would say pick The Gamer's Brain because it's less expensive and it talks specifically about gaming UX, which is what we're here to learn. And so I didn't have any questions or follow-ups from the last session, so let's quickly go over the pillars of gaming UX. This is what we use. It's from The Gamer's Brain that we will be using. We need to think about these things as we play through our games. And these are taken from the Nielsen-Norman heuristics, but then modified specifically for gaming. And so she's got it broken up into two categories. So you've got your normal category for usability, which is based on, again, the Nielsen-Norman heuristics. And then there's an extra category called engageability that is specifically for experiences like games. And so we can quickly go through those real quick. You've got signs and feedback, 7 pillars of usability or signs and feedback: clarity, form follows function, consistency, minimum workload, error prevention and recovery, and flexibility. And then I'll quickly talk about each of these. So for signs and feedback, all of the visual and the audio and the haptic cues and all of that stuff that informs about what's going on in the game or that encourage the players to execute specific actions. That's what signs and feedback are. And they also give a clear reaction to the player's actions to let you know whether or not you've done something successfully. And these are everything, all of the features, the possible interactions that are going on in the game should have some kind of signs and feedback associated with it to help guide the player through the game, through the experience. And then clarity is all of the signs and those feedback should be perceivable and they should be clear to avoid any kind of confusion. Typography, color contrast, font usage, UI design, all of those things. And your your signs should be perceptive but not intrusive. You don't want them to get in the way of the goal of the game. And they should also enable the quick ability to prioritize the information. So what's important right now, what's not important right now, and what's currently relevant. For example, what's not currently relevant. And then form follows function is the form of an item, a character, icon, and so forth should accurately convey its function. And design for affordance. So affordance is, for example, the design should say what you can do with it, what you can't do with it. Like a chair affords sitting, a doorknob affords turning, and so forth. It should intuitively inform the players how to interact with it. And then for consistency, all those signs, those feedbacks, those controls, and the interface should be consistent. And should follow conventions that people are used to. For example, behaviors in MMOs, people have certain expectations for how enemies are designated versus allies versus NPCs. Those all have patterns that people are used to when they're playing MMOs, and we should want to follow those patterns. And we should also want to follow patterns for regional games, regional game controls. For example, the PlayStation has an O and an X. In America, the O or the circle is to go back, but in Japan, the X is to go back on most of the games that I've played so far, at least from between the two regions. So you want to make sure that you're following the mental conventions of your region as well if you're creating a global game, for example. That's what we mean by consistency. You want to be consistent with the different patterns and also the regions, following the gaming mental models and the regional controls. And You should follow similar consistencies that the players have expectations of in that genre or in that type of game, or on that console, for example, or headset. And as far as minimum workload, that is your cognitive load and your physical load. Your attention and your memory is your cognitive load, and like the physical load is how much effort, clicks, or movement, or whatever does it take to perform some kind of action. And that should be taken into account and minimized for the tasks that aren't part of the core experience, like they aren't part of the game mechanic. You want to think about game mechanic versus the actual interactions to navigate the game. Your interactions should not be cumbersome or overly complicated, unless, of course, that is a game mechanic. For example, I like to give the example of in a boss fight, if the boss casts the confuse condition on you, your joystick will behave erratically because that's the mechanic. You're not going where you think you're going to go. You're confused. But if you're not under this confused condition, your joystick should behave as you would expect. You should go the direction that you're trying to make your character go in the game with your joystick on a general console game with a controller. So that is what we're talking about. Your players should be able to focus on the game mechanics and not have to worry about the interface or the controls. Those should be as intuitive as possible and non-intrusive as possible. And then error prevention and recovery. You want to anticipate what errors the players could have and try to prevent them. So if you're, for example, you want to also allow for error recovery whenever possible. So if you leave a game, sometimes they autosave, but they don't always autosave. So if they try to leave the game and they assume that there's an autosave, you'll want to pop up a notification saying, hey, do you want to save your progress? You might lose your progress so far. And that it will, and then allow them to cancel out, allow them to save, and so forth, to keep them from losing all of that gameplay. And then flexibility is the more customizable a game is, the better it is for more people. So in terms of your mapping, your font size, your colors, if it's the more accessible it is for all players, the more players will be able to enjoy your experience, including those with disabilities. By, for example, giving accessibility options for plugging in special controllers, switches, things like that people with accessibility needs have if they have a motor function impairment or so forth. You would like for them to still be able to enjoy your game, because that is a very large demographic of people. Language is also a thing. Audio, being able to adjust the audio controls in the game for people with hearing audio impairments, sound impairments. And you also, if possible, allow for different difficulty levels, because there are some people that just want to enjoy the game at a casual pace, and there are others that want to do or die and it's all or nothing. You want to give them that option. Consider giving them that option, especially so that people with disabilities will be able to enjoy the game. And then you have this new category that's specifically for games that is called engageability. And there are 3 pillars under that: motivation, emotion, and game flow. So for motivation, you want to satisfy a player's need for competence and autonomy and relatedness. How can they relate to this game and enjoy it? You want to focus on the meaning or the sense of purpose and value and impact that this game has for anything that players need to do or that they need to have to learn. You want to offer meaningful rewards. For example, if they're brand new to a game and you're suddenly giving them all of these crafting supplies and they're just trying to survive to get to the first town to even start the game, because they've woken up out in the middle of nowhere, for example, They don't care about crafting supplies right now unless they can suddenly make themselves a weapon, but if they can't, if they have to learn how to do that at some other point, they may care more about gear, they may care more about healing potions at this point. So you want to make sure that the rewards are meaningful depending on where they are in their journey to motivate them. And then emotion is the game feel and presence. That's the polish of the game. It's like the controls, the camera, the character. Those are the 3 C's: control, camera, and character. And you also care about presence and the physical reality. And you want to enable discoverability and surprises. And then game flow is that accounts for the level of challenge as you progress, your difficulty curve, and the amount of pressure or pacing. And it requires distributed learning by doing. So what is the learning curve of doing this stuff? And that's preferably as they go, as they progress, they're learning new things. It's better not to just throw everything at them, teaching them everything at once, and then make them try to remember. So this framework you can use when you're assessing games and also when you're creating games. That is a very good book that I recommend everyone get if they can. She does have some other books as well that I haven't had a chance to read yet. And this is the Rose Thorn Bud exercise we'll be doing later. So let's talk about Cards and Tankards. That's the game we're going to be playing today. So we've been on this theme so far in the games I've been playing. We've been playing tabletop RPGs, usually with cards. I think they've all had cards. So we started on desktop, and then last session we did a VR game called Demio, and now we're going to do Cards and Tankards, which is another VR game. So we're wanting to see how people have translated tabletop RPGs into VR. And then this will be the last one of this genre for a little bit, as I have some other games to play starting next time. So let's learn about this one. This is an early access game, and it is free to play right now. I think it has like in-game purchases. I think that's how they make their money in-game. And it says grab a drink, invite your friends, and ready your deck. Cards and Tankards is VR's first social collectible card game. Collect over 120 cards, battle against other players or the computer, and enjoy the immersive atmosphere of playing at your local card store from the comfort of your home. So that's a lot of nostalgia there for people who love to go to your game stores and play games. I remember there being one in the town I recently lived in where you could go there and play tabletop games. You could play Magic the Gathering and so forth at the store, because they would have events every weekend or something. So that's cool. And they're bringing that into this game. So I think that's a good thing to think about, is how, and this is why you want to research your audience. How do they currently play? How are they currently doing things outside of VR? And try to bring some of that experience into the VR experience as much as possible, within reason, of course. And that is a cool way of doing it. You can collect cards. I'm wondering if you can trade cards. Can you trade cards? Not sure. But you can customize your decks, which is common in those kinds of games. And this is letting you cross-platform play across multiple types of VR, so that's good. I don't think that they're offering a desktop version. I think it's VR only, so you can play across Valve 5, Rift, and Windows Mixed Reality, and I'm not sure if you can play on the Quest or not. I haven't checked, but if somebody knows, let me know. So now let's get into the game, and give me a second to transition over to VR. If anyone's watching, where are you watching from? What part of the world? Okay, today we are using the Vive Cosmos. It has its own technical limitations, one of which the microphone on the Vive is horrific. So that's why I have this weird setup with the headset going on. Alright. Now we've started at the beginning of the tutorial. There was a little bit that played before where you see we are now. I had to press both of my thumbsticks to calibrate the height of the headset. That enables embodiment. Just testing my mic. Check, check. Okay. So it's telling me, let me get situated here. This is one of the reasons that you don't want to start an experience immediately, because people could still be adjusting their headsets, their controllers, and so forth. So you want to make sure that people can initiate the start and stop of the experience, because you don't know what's going on in the outside world. They could have some kind of technical issue or something, so you want to make sure that you're not sharing important information before they've even settled. So let them initiate that start and stop. And now we're in the tutorial. So it's telling me I have hands, I have a little watch here, so so it's multiplayer, so I can mute and unmute myself in world, in the game, if I want. And it's telling me to look around the room and notice that glowing circle on the floor. And I use my right thumbstick, which I can't see in world, to move into position. And I use my right thumbstick to rotate and my left thumbstick to move into position. I would prefer, first of all, that this UI element not be so close to me, because it's making my eyes try to cross because it's so close to me. And it's following me around. So yeah, I'm trying to look around the room, but this thing's in my way. I can't see because it keeps getting in my way. That's annoying. So you don't want to design things that way. It would be better if it were, am I in the camera view? Yeah, it would be better if you would move it down further out. Either move it down or move it further out, preferably both, so that it's not in my way, because right now it's annoying. And another thing, you have to remember right versus left on how you're moving, which is another thing that is difficult for people who are new to gaming. Just let them use whichever thumbstick. Rotating, yeah, that's something that you have to do because various technical limitations of the headset. Some use cameras where you can only face forward, and some, like the older Rift, has some limitations there to some degree, and the PlayStation VR definitely does. You can only face forward and to the sides. If you turn around and face away from the camera, then it can't pick up what's going on. So then you have to have a manual rotation here. Right thumbstick to rotate. If you are going to rotate, give them some comfort options for that, because that can cause people that are sensitive to motion sickness a little bit of discomfort. So you also want to think about that. Ow.
Take a moment to open your watch menu by tapping your watch with your index finger, or by pressing the secondary button on your watch hand's controller.
Okay, so it is right now vibrating crazily, like almost annoyingly. Yes, you want to use a vibration to call attention to where you want the person to look, but right now, if I were trying to do something in the real world, which I was trying to do earlier, and this did not stop vibrating like it's doing now, it's a constant non-stop vibration, it will drive a person crazy. So you want to do pulses or bursts of vibration and not a steady non-stop vibration, because that is annoying. So it's wanting me to look at my watch, and this one has some watch interfaces have it where you just pull up your watch and it will show it. This is a good option for...
Press the DeX button in your watch menu to open the deck box interface.
or keeping it up regardless of what position your arm's in, because the ones that have it to where you pull up your watch, when you lower your wrist, it'll go away, but this one is staying persistent. And it's also, I'm not having to raise my arms up too much to see it, so that's a good thing. And it's wanting me to open the deck box. These are a little bit too close together.
Use your controller's grip function to grab the tutorial deck box from the deck box interface. Place the tutorial deck box into the Play Tutorial deck holder on. This is the Easy AI. Most adventurers call him Mulligan. He's going to help teach you the basics. At the beginning of a battle, you can choose to redraw your starting hand with one less card. But for right now, let's continue on. Press the Accept button.
So these tutorials generally so far have been, except for the very first one that I played, that one was actually a very good tutorial. They throw so much at you at once that it's really hard to take it all in. That's the general behavior of these card game tutorials. And these are a little bit more complicated than some other games, so yeah, there's a lot to share. So a challenge would be to think about how can we teach people how to play these card games without information overload all at once. That is a challenge that people are trying to face. And now we've got, this is how they're handling you holding your cards. So I need to choose to redraw my starting hand with less than one. But right now, let's continue on. And I do like that they keep the words up here, because that's another very important thing when you're teaching someone or you're giving them a goal to accomplish. They need to be able to reference that, because things happen in real life. So you need to be able to reference that you do what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Now, however, these buttons do not look like buttons. They look like boxes. Do they behave like buttons? So it's not glowing. It should glow when my hand hovers over it. It should glow. And it should change some kind of state besides just moving when I press it down.
Battles take place here on the table.
To behave more like a button.
This is your health. If it reaches 0, you will lose the battle. This is your mana. You will spend it to play spells and summon creatures. Look at the cards in your hand. Notice how some have a blue outline around them. Those cards have a mana cost you can afford this turn.
I'm just hovering.
You should probably summon a creature this turn, so grab the Skywatcher Sentry card from your hand.
I like how it has little arrows to tell you which one, and it's using design patterns, so there's a specific pattern that's for the ones that are outlined in blue. And it's following general game conventions of card games, where it has your attack value, your health value, and the cost is up here. The 7, that's the cost. And right now we only have 1, so we can't play that card. But we can play the card that it's pointing to, because it only has 1. And I'm using the grab button
Examine the
to
card.
grab the card.
The number 1 in the top left corner represents the mana cost of this card. The number 2 in the middle left represents the attack power. And the number 1 in the middle right is the creature's health. Let's summon Skywatcher Sentry by placing the card in the creature area shown as the blue highlighted row.
So I do like that they have the cards looking like they would in real life with the description on the actual card, but once you highlight the card to look at it, they have that tooltip there that's a little bit larger font so that you can read what's on the card without eye strain or with less eye strain. This is still a little bit small. And I know that on the Vive Cosmos, the interpupillary distance is pretty low. So, I need to make sure I'm in the camera. Is pretty low. So, it doesn't go low enough for me. It is just outside of my interpupillary distance. So, everything's blurry right now, which is already causing eye strain for me as soon as I put the headset on. So, think about that when you're thinking about your font sizes and stuff. The smaller the font, the harder it's going to be to read, especially with this screen door effect. I don't know if you can see it on the stream, but I definitely see it in the headset. There is a definite screen door effect going on here. Even though the Vive Cosmos is a pretty good quality headset, there is still this black grid of pixels that I'm seeing that's affecting how I can see all those finer details. And I just accidentally let go of the card because I was talking. So it's telling me where to lay it. Okay.
Great job. Skywatcher Sentry is now a friendly creature under your control. It is important to note that your mana was reduced by 1 in order to summon Skywatcher Sentry. Since Skywatcher Sentry was just summoned, it is exhausted. This means it can't attack or use activated abilities this turn. Speaking of abilities, point at Skywatcher Sentry to examine it.
So you'll see that it's got some Z's coming out of it. I guess that means it's exhausted and it can't play this turn, or it can't play
The wing
anymore.
icon represents a passive ability called Flight. This means Skywatcher Sentry can only be blocked by other creatures with flight or ranged. As you encounter new cards, remember you can always examine it to learn more about it. Since your mana has reached 0 and you have no creatures that can attack, let's end your turn. Grab the hourglass with your grip button and flip it over.
Okay, so before that, I'm just hovering over this one. And that's letting me see a much bigger version of the card, as you can see, which lets me see it a little bit better. And it still has that little tooltip over there to let me see. This is me just hovering, but the interaction's a little weird because the inside-out tracking, I'm guessing it's the inside-out tracking on the Cosmos is more touchy than it is on the Quest. And I require a lot more light for the Cosmos. And so if you see my hands jumping around all of a sudden, it's because the lighting's not sufficient for the headset to work properly. That's my assumption. That's my guess of what's going on here. And we have an hourglass. So this is the indicator that my turn's over.
Now it's Mulligan's turn. He is going to play the spell Gunhunt's Call to summon a 1 attack, 1 defense Desperado. Make sure to examine it to learn more about its abilities. It looks like that is all he'll be able to play, so he will end his turn and pass the hourglass back to you. Did you notice? Now that it's your second turn, you've gained 1 extra mana. Let's use that mana to play a spell. Grab Boonda Bones from your hand.
Just a minute. So you can examine your enemies and see what they can do. That font is... I'm getting a lot of vibration from the fonts, and I don't know if that's because of the issue with the screen door effect or if it's because the lens distance is not lining up with my eyes, but I am getting a lot of line vibration going on with the design in here, with the UI elements in here. Even though these are very bold font weights, they should be, and they're a good size. I think it's still that, I think it's partially that interpupillary distance versus interlens distance that is causing an issue for me. So I can only play this game for so long because my eyes are already starting to hurt. I would have to use the Quest probably if I wanted to play for a longer period of time. Use the Oculus Link cable with the Quest because I have the Steam version of the game. But I can see if it is available on the Quest. But I'd rather not buy 2 versions. If cross-buy were a thing across all platforms, that would be great. But it's generally not. So it's telling me to play this one. And it's telling me to play this one, but it's not really explaining to me why I want to do this.
Spells must be played in the spell area, highlighted on the table. Place Boonda Bones there now to play it.
Because it's telling me I have to discard a card.
Boon to Bones requires you discard a card from your hand. Let's discard Garanin Trading Prince. Grab it from your hand now.
It's not explaining to me why I want to discard this one. Because this one seems like a good card. Why would I want to discard it? Gain 1 life. That seems like a good card.
In order to discard Garanin Trading
it's
Prince,
unique.
you need to place it into the graveyard on the left side of the table.
I'm short, so I have to move over here this way. Oh, and that's another thing. Your play area may not be big enough. So thinking about the size of this table, it's rather large for one person. So making us move this far to play the deck is kind of odd. Why is it so far away when it could be closer over here to these things? Or you could change the design of the table. Yeah, this is the normal design of a table, but we've got VR here. Why not take advantage of that? Make the table curved for a more comfortable reach.
Nicely done. Boons to Bones will now summon a Bone Amalgamate and draw the top card from your deck. Notice that your Skywatcher Sentry is no longer exhausted. Let's attack with it this turn. To declare an attack, push Skywatcher Sentry forward into the battle area.
So this one's saying I have a +1/+1 for each Bone Amalgamate in my graveyard. And I can't see what's over there because it's too far away. I can push it without even touching my controls. That's interesting.
Now that you're ready, flip the hourglass to confirm the attack.
It's because I can't play anything else. I'm assuming I'm ready.
Your opponent will always be able to choose
That
how they block
animation's a
against
little
your
weird.
attacks.
It's kind of jarring because I let go of
In
it and
this
then all of a sudden
instance,
it flies.
Mulligan will block
somewhere.
your Skywatcher Sentry with his Desperado. Creatures deal their attack to one another. If a creature's health reaches 0, it dies. And when a creature dies, it is sent to the graveyard. It is now Mulligan's turn again. Looks like he decided to summon a Dungeon Instigator. He is also playing the spell Motivational Fervor. That spell allows Mulligan to give one of his creatures Amped and +2/+2 until end of turn. Amped is the ability that removes the exhausted status of a creature. That means it will be able to attack the turn it's summoned. The +2/+2 means that the spell increases the creature's stats by 2 attack and 2 defense. Mulligan has declared an attack and ended his turn. Notice how the hourglass is now on your side again, but it has a shield icon on top. The shield icon signifies that this is your turn to block. Notice the yellow ring around Dungeon Instigator. This indicates that a creature will deal direct damage if left unblocked. Use your controller's grip button to grab your Bone Amalgamate and place it in the blue ring in front of Dungeon Instigator to block the attack.
So I'm thinking more about this hourglass and how it keeps flying back and forth across the table. I think this is kind of weird, so why not just give each player an hourglass and just turn it over on their side instead of making it fly across the table. So I'm going to use the grip button this time. Yes, you can pick them up and move them.
Perfect. The yellow ring around Dungeon Instigator has disappeared. This means it will no longer deal direct damage this turn. Unfortunately, the Bone Amalgamate died because it took 4 damage from Dungeon Instigator, and it only had 1 health. There's nothing else you can do right now, so flip over the hourglass to start your next turn. The hourglass remained on your side of the table, but the icon on top has changed to an axe. The axe icon indicates that it is now your main turn again. Do me a favor. Point your hand at the graveyard located on your left, and pull your trigger to examine the cards within it. If you prefer... Oh look!
Ugh.
Remember last turn how you discarded Garanin Trading Prince? You have a spell in your hand that can bring him back. Close the graveyard by swiping it away.
So I missed the first thing he said because I was annoyed that I had to move back over here to see the graveyard. Because it's so far away. Let me see, am I in the camera? Nope. I was annoyed that because this table's so far away, it's so big to me that I felt like I had to go back over there to click it, and then, because I had to earlier, to lay down a card in it with the grab button. And now, when I did that, the cards showed back over here where I should be anyway. So why not just move this physically over so that people can actually reach it, instead of it being all the way on the other side of the table? Because there's clearly enough space here on the table. Or, like I said, make the table
Play
a
the
curve.
spell Necromancy to
And
summon
I accidentally
Garen and
swiped
Trading
it
Prints
away,
from
I
your
guess. Okay. Something else to think about. I can bring it back like that, and then... And I didn't swipe, so all I did was move my hand up. So that's not a swipe. You want to make sure that it's a... If that is the dismissal, that it is a noticeable swipe. Not just a hand trying to touch one of the cards. Because I was just trying to touch the card to see if it would get bigger, so I could see it. But, nope. Okay, play the spell Necromancy to summon Garanon, Trading Prince, from your graveyard. So I need to use the Necromancy card. And it's a spell, so it goes here.
Select Garen and Trading Prints by grabbing it.
Now I can touch them.
Great work! Garen has some really unique abilities. Remember, you can examine him if you want to learn more. Otherwise, there is nothing more to do, so flip the hourglass to end your turn.
Nothing more to do, because why couldn't I just play this one? Because I have 1 mana. Why wouldn't I want to play that? Do we only have so many actions? I thought if you have enough mana you can do more. It's not explaining why. It's not explaining why. And I want to know why. Something just happened, but I don't know what. I missed it. I don't know what's happening.
What just happened?
Here. Yeah.
Mulligan summoned a monstrous recruiter, and several abilities triggered as a result. Let's break down each ability. Triggered abilities will only activate under certain conditions. For example, Monstrous Recruiter has an entrance ability, which was triggered by entering the creature area. Once activated, Mulligan drew 2 cards. Your Garen Trading Prince had an ability trigger as well. As long as you control Garen Trading Prince, you gain 1 life whenever an opponent draws a card. And since Mulligan drew 2 cards from Monstrous Recruiter's entrance ability, you gain 2 life. It looks like Mulligan is attacked again with his Dungeon Instigator, so it's time to make a decision. If you block the Dungeon Instigator with your Garen Trading Prince, both creatures will die. Garen Trading Prince has some very strong abilities. It is better if you keep him alive. Instead of blocking this turn, you can choose to take the direct damage. Flip the hourglass without designating a blocker.
Okay. But again, why wouldn't I play... I have 1 mana, why wouldn't I play one of these other ones? Give them more life. It's not explaining.
Ouch. You lost 2 life from that attack, but trust me, it was worth it. Since now it is your 4th turn,
They're
you
just
have
saying
4
trust
mana
me.
available to spend.
Okay.
You definitely need another creature to block Mulligan's Dungeon Instigator next turn. Grab Loyal Spell Shaper from your hand and summon it.
next damaging spell deals X more damage. This activates each turn. Why does it say X? Performs an ability when the creature dies.
Loyal Spellshaper has an ability called Mastery, which buffs damage dealt by spells. You don't currently have any damage spells in your hand, but maybe we can draw one with Garen in Trading Prince. Manually activate his ability by tapping him on the head.
I'm trying to tap him, but it's just trying to move him. So this is not a good interaction because I'm trying to do what it's telling me to do. Trying to tap him on the head. I don't have any of my buttons pushed. Ugh, okay,
Would you
I don't
look
know
at
why
that?
it worked that time, and
You
it
drew a
didn't
Dark
before.
Matter Blast. That is exactly what you needed. If you look at Dark Matter Blast, you will notice the damage value is green. That is because the Mastery ability from your Loyal Spellshaper buffs your first damage spell each turn. Since Loyal Spellshaper has Mastery 2, Dark Matter Blast increased from deal 3 damage to deal 5 damage. Play Dark Matter Blast to spend the rest of your available mana this turn.
So now it's telling me to spend my mana. But we're starting to get into, it's like this is starting to become too much because I'm already trying to learn how to interact with things, and adding on because the interactions aren't as easy as they should be here. And I'm learning the cards, which again, I'm not as familiar with card games because I didn't grow up playing them. I'm learning both at the same time, and it's a lot to take in at once. And this is why you don't want your interfaces to get in the way of trying to figure out how to play the interfaces to get in the way of actually playing the card game, because the card game's already complicated. Even the most wizened of masters fear and understand little of dark matter magic other than its undeniable effectiveness.
When playing a damage spell, you will likely need to choose a target. Anything highlighted with a blue ring is a possible target for Dark Matter Blast. Be careful though. You can accidentally target yourself.
And that's
You
something.
can either tap a target directly or point at it and pull the trigger to select it. Target Mulligan's life points to deal 5 direct damage.
So there's multiple things going on here. So it was just saying that I could accidentally target myself. As far as error prevention and recovery goes, why would I want to target myself with this kind of card? Is there ever a reason I would want to do that? If not, don't let me be able to do that. That's a simple design solution. I don't know how difficult it is on the development side, but if you can't, if it's something that you wouldn't want to do, don't let them do it. It's simple error prevention. And another problem that I'm having here is you see this laser that keeps coming up, and even when I have the grit button on, this laser keeps coming up. It's interfering with interactions. It's interfering with what I'm trying to do, and it's distracting. So if you have the grit button on, why would you need the laser activated? Is there ever a reason why I would need the laser activated at the same time I have my grit button open? If not, don't activate the laser. It's those fine details of make or break an experience. They can cause additional frustration that's really not necessary. So now I need to target Mulligan's life points to deal 5 direct damage. So, and I have to be careful to not target myself. So, and I forgot how to do that. I'm assuming I point at it and pull the trigger, but since we have these two things in the way, I'm having a hard time pointing at Mulligan. So maybe one thing think about your spacing of your elements on the table, because these things are too close together for me to accurately target what I'm trying to target here. That's the one thing about VR that is an issue, is you have to think about the spacing of elements. These are too close together, so I'm trying to make sure I don't click the wrong thing, and I'm having to get myself in this weird...
You really are quite a natural.
Yeah, I'm a natural,
Normally,
sure.
a match would continue until a player's health reaches 0. But since you have successfully covered all the basics, let's move on. Did you know that this card game is based on our ancient history during the time of the Dungeon Wars? Most adventurers who pass through here only know bits and pieces about the legends. I'll give you a quick history lesson since you need to choose a primary faction later on.
One of the good things that you should let people do is progress themselves.
The Dungeon Masters were a powerful race of scholars whom worshipped the oldest god. They sought to improve their mastery of dark matter magic by experimenting on the poor, unfortunate dead. Dwelling in their dungeons beneath the towers and catacombs of the ancient world, they commanded their forces of undead armies and enslaved monsters to protect their conjured riches from greedy plunderers. On the table in your creature area, you can see the Dungeon Master Zerothrix. When you select Dungeon Master as your deck's primary faction, you must add one Dungeon Master to your deck, and their health will always be equal to your own. This means whenever Zerothrix takes damage, you do as well. To balance the fact that you always start the match with your Dungeon Master in play, you start each battle with one less card in your hand. All Dungeon Masters have strong abilities you can build a deck to synergize with. Point at Zerothrix Arcanist Supreme. Zerothrix has the Mastery ability. He would be a smart choice in a deck full of damage spells. Overall, the Dungeon Master faction is easy to learn and well balanced, with a variety of spells and creatures to choose from. There are more factions to choose from though, so let's keep going.
So, one thing, when you're doing a tutorial,
the Monsters' Rights Association.
Don't auto-progress
the Monsters' Rights
dialogue,
Association
because
is an
I'm
army
missing
of foul
half
and
of it,
murderous beasts,
because it's going too
often
fast
birthed
and I'm
by the
trying
vile
to
dungeon masters
do
and
other
twisted
things.
experiments deep within the dungeons. However, under the gibbous
really
powers of the
frustrating.
wild god, they rebelled against their former masters
I'm
and
missing
struck
most
them
of it.
down out of hatred and malice. No mortal being in the ancient world was safe from the stampede of these vengeful creatures. While playing with Monsters' Rights Association as your primary faction, you can put a creature from your hand into your reserves once per turn. Grab Skywatcher Sentry from your hand.
So now that it stopped, okay, it looks like it's starting to teach me the different factions, and it just showed me one, but then it disappeared before I had a chance to play it. And now I'm back to maybe the ones I had before, I'm not sure. But one of the very important things that you have to do is, people want to study and they want to look at what's going on so they can understand. But if you're pushing them through the tutorial at your pace instead of their own pace, then it's going to make it very frustrating, and they're going to have to repeat the tutorial multiple times to even understand what's going on, because you didn't give them a chance to do both at the same time, study, understand before they move on. So when you're teaching someone, and even you give them the option to whether or not they want the dialogue to auto progress versus let them progress the dialogue, because I missed most of what was said, because started saying a bunch of words about powers and cards, and my brain's trying to associate what the heck they're talking about, because I don't have a chance to look at my deck because I'm looking at something else that they said before, because I'm still trying to process what they said before, and they're just continuing bowling on about what they want to teach you, and it's a lot, it's too much to take in at once if you're not letting them manually progress the tutorial versus just bowling through it like they're doing right now. So that's really frustrating. And there were a bunch of other things that I was wanting to say that I couldn't, because I was trying to remember those plus kind of learn this game. which I'm not. I don't think I would do a good job if I tried this game after the tutorial, because I have no confidence that I would, because I don't understand half of what's going on. I know the basics of this is your health, this is your mana, you need this much mana, but the strategy that they're trying to teach, I'm not understanding the strategy side of it. They're not explaining why things are happening. They're just saying, trust me, you're gonna really appreciate this later. That's not how I learn. So I need to play this card. Okay.
Place Skywatcher Sentry into your reserves located to the right of your deck.
So wait, so why is this highlighted when you're telling me to put it here? Because I almost played it. Don't highlight it. If you're teaching me to do something, I almost put it there because I didn't see this because it's way over here.
When you put a creature into your reserves, you gain 1 additional mana that turn.
It does take extra
With
effort
that
to
additional
make
mana,
these
you can now
development
summon Improvised Medic.
things happen
Grab Improvised
on the
Medic from
development
your
side
hand.
of things, but they really make the difference in an experience. So now I need to grab Improvised Medic from my hand.
Improvised Medic has an ability called Mobilize, which will summon a creature from your reserves with a mana cost equal to the Mobilize value. Since Improvised Medic has Mobilize 1, it will summon the 1 mana Skywatcher Sentry you just placed into your reserves. Summon Improvised Medic to watch the Mobilize trigger.
It's telling me to do all this stuff, but it's not really explaining to me why I would want to do that. I still don't know why I would want to do any of that.
Overall, the Monsters' Rights Association is a creature-heavy faction that is typically fast-paced. However, it requires careful planning to capitalize on its full potential. Keep this in mind as you explore the other factions.
And load
This
screen.
deck's primary faction is the Plundering Guild. The hearts of men are reliably corrupted by the promises of power and wealth. However, almost none would ever dare venture into the dungeons of the masters in that pursuit. Despite this fact, imbued by the god of greed's temptation, the greediest thieves and mercenaries of the Plundering Guild often risk their lives for the ultimate payout. While playing with the Plundering Guild as your primary faction, you will notice that a new resource is available in front of you. This is your coin resource. Many of your cards can be enhanced in exchange for coins. You earn 1 coin at the beginning of each turn, similar to mana. However, once you exchange a coin, it is lost forever, so spend them wisely. Grab Frontline Squire from your hand.
So now that they've stopped talking, the load screen that's been showing in between each of these, and you'll have to use your memory, that load screen was stuck to my HUD, meaning that anywhere I turned my head, that HUD was, that whole screen, that whole scene was stuck to my HUD, like they just placed a photo smack on my camera. No spatial movement. It's not 360, it's just they smacked a photo to my camera. And it moved everywhere I moved, so I had no indication of space. The only thing that let me know that you don't want to do that with load screens, and I have an article about that on my website, but load screens, I think I do. You want them to be spatial so that people don't think that the experience is broken, because they could think that it's frozen or that it's crashed if you have a photo just smacked to the viewport with no spatial, no... when they turn your head, it's stuck to your face, and that makes you think you've got latency, it makes you think you've got lag, or it makes you think that something's broken. The only reason I knew that it was a load screen that was working is because they had the little dots that were moving. And I think that there was sound going, but why not just a better experience to make it more clear that they were changing the cards to a different kind was to just animate that. Just animate the cards changing somehow instead of changing the whole thing with a load screen. Yeah, it's more development work, but it makes for a greater understanding of what's going on in the scene, which adds interest and it adds understanding of what's actually happening. My cards changed. And I played through this like once before to try it out and make sure the tech worked. And the first time I played through, I didn't realize that's what was happening, because again, I have to go through this tutorial a few times because they're barreling through everything and I'm missing a lot while they're talking because I'm trying to think about the last thing they told me. And so I'm missing what they're telling me now because it's not letting me progress at my pace. So that's a major problem with this tutorial.
Frontline Squire has an entrance ability that will buff a random creature in your hand. You can also see that it has an enhance ability which will upgrade the card. Once enhanced, Frontline Squire will be able to buff 2 random creatures instead of only 1 in exchange for 1 coin. Grab Frontline Squire and tap it to the coin to enhance the card. Now that's a powerful card. Notice that the text has been altered and there is no longer an enhance ability. This card can't be enhanced a second time. Summon Frontline Squire to trigger its entrance ability.
So the question I have is, it's saying that it can't be enhanced again. Does that mean this card is permanently changed regardless of when I play it again ever in another game, or is it just permanently changed for this game? That's not something that's clarifying. So then I'd have to remember to go check later, was this card already enhanced or not? And I don't remember the visible change because I wasn't paying enough attention to the card before to see what it looked like before to see what the visible change is. I might check later on the recording. That's why we do recordings when we do walkthroughs, is so we can double check things later. So I do recommend that when you're walking through experiences, record it so you can check things later and see what you missed, what you didn't miss. And then that would save me from having to go through the tutorial 50 more times just to get the understanding. I could just watch the video and pause it and see what I missed.
Since you enhanced Frontline Squire, both Pillaging Prince and the Dagger Supplier were buffed by +1 attack and +1 defense. Cards that are enhanced or buffed in your hand are permanently improved and will not return to their original stats even if they are killed, banished, or returned. Overall, the Plundering Guild is a creature-heavy faction that is all about balancing your resources to gain incredible value to overpower your opponent. Well, I've taught you all I know. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask your fellow adventurers. I am glad that you stumbled into this old tavern of ours. A tankard of ale and a good distraction is exactly what an adventurer like yourself needs.
So, question I have there is, and now the cards are gone because it moved me. What if I had had 3 cards in my hand instead of 2 that could be buffed? Do I pick which 2 get buffed, or does it automatically pick it for me? I don't know. I didn't learn that. It didn't teach me. It very conveniently taught me things that made the game go in my favor. Is that really teaching me? I'm not so sure it is. So now, game's over and I've been brought back to where I started. And it's following me around, which is annoying. Don't like it. So this is because I'm trying to look around and I can't see anything through this annoying UI. And it's too close to me. So the private room where you can customize your avatar, edit your personal decks, and play AI battles without distraction. Okay. I didn't notice this the first time I was in here. Customize your avatar. Take a moment to open your watch menu. Okay, so I don't have any gold. These UI elements are too close to each other, meaning that I could accidentally tap something I don't want to tap. And that's really important, not to accidentally tap forfeit. Can I look at the deck? Stop it. Be quiet. It's like I'm annoyed and I'm not even reading it because it just keeps popping up. So I didn't read it. And my head's hurting because I've been in the headset too long. So my eyes are hurting, my head's hurting. So that's making me more irritable. Documentation. Oh. Yeah. These are too close together. And this font is too small. They need to work on their hierarchy of their fonts, because I don't want to read that in game. I don't want to read this in game. It's making my eyes want to cross. These are things you can buy with in-game currency. And of course, this is how they make their money, because you need to purchase this diamond, crystal, whatever, gem with real money. And the gold is what you get from the game, I guess. And this whole interaction is getting tiresome. My arms are getting tired. Because the hand tracking, you have to hold things out further, especially if you have smaller stature like me. So I'm having to hold my arms out further so that I can interact with this stuff. And so I can now see, because there's not a thing blocking my view. So here is this, I'm guessing this is the avatar customization thing, and I just lost my tracking on my right hand. Ugh. Here. Don't want to be a dude. I'm annoyed it defaulted to a dude. That is an assumption about people that play these games. And I'm trying to just tap it, and it's having difficulty with hand tracking, and you have to pay for some of these higher ones. But it only gives you, like, you can have a pixie cut or ponytail. That's it. Or you can go bald. And I'm trying to press these, but I'm having a difficult time. Don't need that. Those are all paid for. So we can just go with normal clothes. That's it. I can change this though. I am very white. This is having a lot of problems with interaction. Whatever toolkit they're using for hand interactions is rather touchy. It's buggy, which makes it frustrating. And you have to pay for cool colors. Okay. And I'm trying to get back up to the hair. Okay, it's annoying. I'm just gonna leave it because I'm annoyed. So, save. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and try to leave. Can I do that? Yes. I can, but I'll just leave it in the game. Leave it sitting here for the music. But I'm getting out of the headset. Because my head hurts. That's a physical factor of these headsets, of VR, is that the headsets, you think about how long people stay in the game because they're physically straining. So think about being able to exit a game easily and let them save it and pick back up where they left off so that they don't lose their gameplay if they have to stop in the middle of the game because their head's killing them like mine is right now. So give me a second to get the headset off. Okay, so let's get going on the rose thorn bud for this one. Let me just get that turned on. Okay, so there was a lot going on in there, so I'm not going to remember everything. But ideally you would go through that video and then write out all your rose thorn buds, but I'm just going to do a highlight based on memory, so I'm going to miss a lot of stuff because there was a ton going on. And I'm not going to remember it all. Ideally, if you were doing this professionally for something, you would record yourself and then you would go and verify and double check, and you would go through and write out all the things that you experienced. If this were like a professional project or something that you were doing seriously, so that you don't miss things, because it's important to be able to make improvements to things. Or this could also be used as what you, if you go through and analyze it, okay, these are the things that we need to verify with other people because I'm not my target audience again. So all these thorns, things that I'm saying are thorns, we need to verify when we test. We need to keep an eye on this to see if this is an issue for anyone else or if it's just me because of certain situations that I'm in, and so forth. My body size is such that those reaches were too big. The room was not to scale. That's my life in real life. Things are not built for me. It's a very large world. So, but it's in VR, so why can't I make that world fit me? Anyway, that's off the subject a little bit. So let's talk about roses. And roses are things that went well. What was the highlight? What did you like? So I like the atmospheric music. I think I hear a fireplace or something, but I don't remember seeing a fire. Maybe there was one. I don't remember. But it's also called Cards and Tankards, and in the private room, and maybe that's because you should never drink alone, I don't know, but I don't remember seeing any tankards. Maybe there was one, but I don't remember seeing it. Anyway, so I guess you have to go out into the tavern to get that, maybe. So think about your atmospheric music, and if there is the sound of a fireplace, a fire crackling, make sure that there's a fireplace in there. Unless it's just that the fire from the tavern so loud that you can hear it in there, but that would make me concerned. There may have been a fireplace in there, I just didn't notice it. I liked that, what was one of the other things I said that was cool? it was a concept of playing at a card shop, even though this is a tavern. The tavern that sells cards. Okay. Some taverns in fantasy games have vendors, so I guess so. Like item vendors. They carried over the mental models. Carried over the mental models of card games, of trading card games. Attack versus attack health and mana or cost of playing the card, etc. They carried over that mental model. I like that you can physically push the pieces on the table instead of having to pick it up. That was a nice touch because you can do that in real life, so why not in here? What were some other things? If anyone's watching and you've had some other things that you thought were good, this would be great for you to also participate in this. If you're watching this live, or if you're watching it on YouTube later and you want to make a comment, you could also do that. What are some of the roses and the thorns and the buds that you saw from it? That's another thing. So, because I've seen that a lot of people, it's not a great time for you to watch something like this live, so you can still participate in the chat. Make comments on YouTube and say, these are my rose, thorns, and buds that you missed, or I agree or I disagree with this rose, thorn, bud. It was like this for me instead. But that's from an observer's point of view, but still valuable because you were observing me, so you saw things that I probably didn't see. And that's a good exercise for you, a good practice for you to do too, because then that's going to help you learn. Observing other people using the experience is going to give you different perspectives than if you're the one actually trying it. So, what was another good thing? Atmosphere, concept of playing. I like that they start you in a private area and don't throw you in a social setting immediately. I'm an introvert, so that would stress me out if I'd like log out immediately. It's like, oh, don't talk to me, stranger. But I'm sure they'd probably be really nice and would love to help you, but it freaks me out. So I like being able to prepare myself for socialization before just being thrown into it. What were some other good things? And you'll notice here that I'm keeping it very short because this is post-it form. I mean, there are multiple ways to do this, but Post-its is a nice, easy way of doing it with your team and collaboration in a meeting setting. So you'll notice that I'm keeping one per Post-it, and it's a short to 1 point. There are not multiple points going on one Post-it. And the Post-it helps keep it to 1 point because it has to be short. You want to keep the points separate because their solutions are potentially separate. The way you would fix it in the development side of things is potentially separate. So you want to keep them separate, and then developers, you can work with developers later to figure out how these issues are solved if you're doing a project of your own instead of just an erudition like we're doing right now. I'm pretty sure there are more cool things. The designs of the cards, they kept that. They kept the card design, mental model, in place. It's your standard card design for these types of games. And so now, Thorns, the hand interaction was buggy. Trigger like that little laser versus, well, I need to learn how to spell laser. The laser versus the finger, laser versus touch, was competing with each other. And that was frustrating. The tutorial was auto-progressing instead of I need to learn how to spell. Instead of letting me control the pace by letting me control the pace. I'll just leave it there because that's a bud that I was trying to get into a bud. Okay. So you want to keep your thorns separate from your buds. That's a common thing that people do is, so the thorns are what was a low point, what did you not like. You don't want to start adding your buds to the thorns column immediately. You want to keep them separate. The buds are where you're going to, that's your easy list for what are the opportunities you see, what would you do differently next time, what questions do you have. That's your column for next steps. So you want to keep it separate to make it this is a clear, concise list of next steps without having to dig through and figure out what are my next steps now. Now you can look at the thorns and the roses for context, but keeping them separate helps you agree, okay, yeah, these are our next steps. This is what we have to do next. Okay, thorns. What was something else that frustrated me? The spacing of the items on the table was an issue. Table, and there were multiple things that were going on there. So let me think how I want to write that out. So I would want to keep them kind of separate. They go together as far as a theme, but they're still separate issues. One was the size of the table and how spread out everything was, as far as my cards and my decks and my discard piles and stuff. And then there was also the problem of how when I was trying to deal with pick which thing I'm wanting to attack, when I had to pick the opponent instead of the things on the table, they were all too close together. And it was having a hard time with that accuracy of picking. And yeah, that's a benefit for them because then they're shielding their own direct health. So yeah, that's good for them. But I need to be able to target that if that's what I'm wanting to do. Because that would cause major frustration if I accidentally picked the wrong target because the targets were too close together for me to be able to do that accurately. That's a problem with the game design, not a problem with the player. Well, I'm just going to make that a category, but then I'm going to say so the deck that was, so what was in front of me? What was in front of me was my health and mana and stuff. Health and mana indicators. Whereas the cards that I needed to play with were way off on the side. So then that makes me think of how they designed that whole thing, that whole layout. Why was the mana and the health right in front of me when what I needed was the cards and the cards were like way over to the left. Yeah. So then that brings up, okay, so the health, so the card deck and piles were off to the left, were far off to the left. At a distance. While the health and mana, which I don't need to do anything or interact with those, so why were they there? While the health and the mana were in front of me, although I couldn't actually interact with them. So that was one, and then the other one was that there were two things, at least two things. So it was, and the bud might solve both of those problems that I'm thinking of in my head right now. I've got a lot going on in my head right now that I'm trying to share. It was hard. So the spacing of the health of the target area for the opponent to directly, why can't I spell? To directly attack opponent instead of the what were those called? Instead of the card, well, I'll just call them cards on the table, was too close. I need this to be in present tense because it's still the case. Too close together. Afraid of accidentally, this is long, clicking the wrong target. Okay, I'm going to change this because it needs to be, I like to do this stuff in present tense, and I keep forgetting, even though I'm the one that likes to do it. It's good to keep it in present tense because this is the current state of the thing, and so you're thinking in present tense. It helps with that. Can physically starts you in a private area. I need to fix my English too, and doesn't throw you in a social setting immediately. Keeps the card design mental model in place, or tabletop. RPG, card games, to clarify. So the hand interaction is buggy. Competing against each other. Tutorial is auto-progressing instead of letting me control the pace. So I need to just say why that's an issue, probably, instead of adding the bud there. I messed up. So is auto-progressing, which makes me miss important information while still processing, while still trying to process what was previously said. So that is information overload. Yeah, because I was trying to add the bud there. I was telling you not to do that when I was doing it myself. So then spacing of items on the table is an issue, and there's two key areas where that's an issue. And so we can actually fix that in a different way. Yeah, we can. There's a lot of options there, and that would be if you want to, for a little exercise for fun. I probably won't do it myself because time. But if that's something that you want to do, that you feel fun to do, I would say a good exercise or challenge was that to be, how can you redesign the table to make this work? And where that you don't have this problem of the spacing of the target area. I have my ideas for how I would do it, but it would be interesting to see other people's ideas for how they would do that and just like sketch out a layout of a table and what that would look like. In first person view for the player, and so that you can still see the opponent and do what you need to do with the opponent, such as attacks and so forth. How would that look? How would that look for a single player versus AI versus multiplayer? How would that play out? Yeah, and I'm wondering what multiplayer would be like, and I may try that in the future, but right now I don't know what that looks like. I could probably just look on YouTube and see how other people, that would be a good exercise to go in and look at YouTube and watch other people play the game, because that's another observation experience, and do a rose thorn bud on that. I've done that. I do that sometimes as well. Okay, so there was some other things that were a problem. Oh, sticking stuff to the HUD. Very annoying. And that was also inconsistent in the placement of those HUD elements was inconsistent. Sometimes it was off to the side out of the way, which is what you want. It was off to the side and you could still reference it while you were looking at the table. That's perfect. But when you were like standing anywhere else in the room, you had these things right in your face. Let's see, there was some inconsistency. Did I actually spell it right? Inconsistency in panel placement in tutorial. Some panels, and I don't know which is which. There may have been a pattern there. I think that. Trying to remember, I think that was the pattern, was if you're at the table then it was off to the side, but if you're in the room somewhere it's in your face, which is annoying. So let me see. So I don't know if that's really that they were inconsistent so much as some tutorial UI panels pop up in your face and block your view, follow you so you can't see, and follow. It's like really annoying. Follow you around, blocking your view. What was something else that was... At the end there, I was getting frustrated because my head was hurting, and that was making me lose patience more so than I would normally. So also, when you're doing usability testing on these things, you want to think about how long you keep them in that headset, because the longer they're in that headset and the less they're used to it. I know that I've been doing VR for a while, but I have size issues. That headset is really heavy to me because I'm a smaller stature person. It looks like I'm taller than I am because I made my furniture to fit me, but I'm actually only 4'10", And so everything's big on me, and that size, and that's especially something to think about if you're designing for children, because there are recommendations for age of children in VR that you want to consider as well. But the headsets are really heavy still, and so after a while that starts weighing on you and getting heavier and heavier. Even though they made the headsets more comfortable, it still starts to hurt after a while. And you don't know the state of your people. You can't control their physical state, their medical state. They could be more susceptible to migraines. They could be more susceptible to physical pain than others because of issues like fibromyalgia, things like that, that are muscular pain issues that you have no control over, and it's not normally an issue for a lot of people, but for these people, it is an issue. So you want to think about those things and consider those things when you're designing your experiences to make it to where, yeah, they can continue to play your game, but if they need to get out of that game at any time, let them do so easily. I noticed a forfeit button, so if you were playing with someone or if you were in the middle of a game, you could forfeit and end. But what would be nice is, and I don't know, maybe there is an option, if you just needed to just stop the game, leave it, and go away because something in life happened outside of the headset, which happens all the time. Can they go continue that game later, or do they have to start all over? It would be nice if they could just pick it back up if it was a longer game or something. Anyway, some tutorial UI panels pop up in your face. What was another thing? So there was my arms getting tired from dealing with watch interface. Holding arms up for extended periods of time. While digging through the menu. And then that gets back into that whole text neck gorilla arm issue. You're gonna have to pick one, because one or the other's gonna happen, and I can't spell gorilla. Okay. That's what happens when you listen to audiobooks instead of reading physical books. You forget how to spell. Spacing of the buttons on UI panel. Too close. Increase risk. Accidental clicks. And there was a lot of text. I don't want to read it. Because of the screen door effect. Is it effect or effect? Screen door effect, causing line vibration. And fatigue. Eyestrain. So that's enough. That's enough thorns for now. There's plenty. So let's think about some buds. Let's see. You can also. Let me try to get the website to show up in the chat. I'm trying to remember my command for that. There it is. You can learn more about best practices at my website, pintsizerobotninja.com. It's in the it's if you're watching this later on YouTube, there'll be a link, and if you are watching this on Twitch, if you scroll down to the About section, you'll see a link there as well. But you can learn more about the best practices of what I'm talking about here on that website later. But, okay, so some buts. So the hand interaction is buggy, the laser versus touch, competing against each other. So I would say use them. Oh, that reminds me of another issue I was having. In context. So use them in context. Okay, so I will just say explore ways to use them in context. So when is the laser needed versus touch. So I'm just gonna make this an example, e.g. laser pointer not needed while holding card. Or I would say, is the laser pointer needed? Because I can't think of a reason why it would be. So that would be a question, and that would be something to follow up on. And so these go together. I'm making these go together. And then that one is with this one. Okay, tutorial is auto-progressing, which makes me miss important information. Let player manually progress tutorial, or give option to let them manually progress. Spacing of items on table. Explorer, I would say, instead of just solutioning it immediately, I would say explore the spatial design and placement of items on table. Get outside of that box that you're thinking in, and that goes for both of these. Okay, and then some tutorial UI panels pop up in your face. Don't stick. So some of these things are just best practices, and so if it's a best practice, you can go ahead and say, don't do that. Don't stick panels to the HUD. Explore alternative panel placement. So this is the next step on that. So it's not solutioning, but it is saying, well, this is what we need to do next. Because it would require a, on this one specifically, the spacing of the items on the table, that would require maybe body storming, where you use crafting supplies and stuff to physically, or if you have cards, great, you can just use your cards to manually figure out how you should place those cards on the table for a more optimal gameplay. But you need to space them out a little differently than you would in real life, because again, that targeting is an issue. Okay, arms getting tired from dealing with the watch interface. So I would say, okay, I can just change the color. This is a great app, by the way. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I'm not making any money from using them, but Miro is a great app for you to use if you want to remotely collaborate, or if you don't have room for Post-its. I know I don't have room for Post-its, but it's a great great app, Miro. They have all kinds of options that you can do with it. You can draw on it, you can whiteboard, you can do tables, you can bring in PDFs and images and stuff, and really brainstorm and ideate in here. You can actually even kind of storyboard in here a little bit if you want to, if you're doing UX storyboarding. So it's a great tool. You can comment and collaborate too in here. So you can have meetings in here and stuff. So, and you can add your little emojis and dot voting, all that. You can do that remotely in here. But I mean, if you can do that, if you have access to VR, it would be better for you, much better and more engaging to do that in VR. But they do have an app, but I don't know if you can do cross-platform collaboration multiplayer in there yet. That's worth trying. Anyway, that was not sponsored. That was just me thinking about this is a cool tool that I use all the time. So arms getting tired when dealing with the watch interface, like holding up arms for extended periods of time. Think about what should go in a watch interface versus what could have a different menu panel treatment. For example, it could all still be accessed from that watch menu, sure, but then what should pop out, what shouldn't pop out? What could pop out versus staying attached, for example. But you want to think about how you do that too, because you want consistency. You don't want it to be easy. Well, let them pop it out, so can rest their arm. And then they were just too close. Did I say that? Did I say they were too close? I didn't, but those UI panels were too close, which also was causing eye strain. It was making my eyes want to cross. And it's hard to notice that when you're watching it on the 2D, but in there, it was too close. And again, I don't know how much of that was because of the cosmos. The inner lens distance is just too big for my eyes. How much of that was that versus the closeness of the panel, but I do think that the panel was still closer than it should have been. That is a challenge. Another thing, the size of the text and everything in that game. What is a challenge in card games? That's why I've been playing the like Demio and this one to see what are the solutions that they're trying so far to solve that problem, because your cards are small. How do you solve that problem of the text? And I like how they had the pop-out panels next to them, and that helps some, but still seemed to be a little bit too small. So how do you solve that problem? What are some things you can do to solve that? Until the headsets get better and that's no longer an issue. But right now it is. My eyes are tired. They hurt from being in there too long because of that inner lens distance problem. It's the headset, not the... Part of it's the headset, part of it's the experience, the font size. So we can control some of those things, so we would want to fix the fonts issues as much as we can. And again, this is an early release, so I'm giving them... I'm not saying don't ever play this game, because I don't hate the game, but there are a lot of issues, and again, it is an early release, so give them some grace and give them time to fix things, because they're still learning to... it has a lot of potential. So think about what should go in a watch. So spacing of the buttons on the UI. So increase spacing of UI elements and buttons to prevent accidental clicks. it was very frustrating on the avatar creation one where I was trying to, I just quit. I stopped messing with it at the end because I kept accidentally clicking on something when I didn't mean to. Part of that was because the hand tracking with Cosmos can get wonky because it needs more light than I have in my space. So that's a problem with the headset. And I could try it with the Quest to see if it's any better because the Quest is able to handle lighting a lot better than the Cosmos seems to be able to. So I could try it again with that one to see if it's any less frustrating, but my hand kept jumping around and I would accidentally click on something and I just got tired of it. And I was already, my head was already hurting, so I was already getting frustrated and irritable, so. So there was a lot of text on the UI panel. Don't want to read the screen door effect causing line vibration. So the font sizes don't put large chunks. The body copy in world and look at font treatments. Those seem like two separate things, so that they could be either one or two. It's just when you're rethinking, and I have another one on rethinking the design. So where was that? The HUDs, think about what should go on the watch. So yeah, well, these are all about the UI panel, aren't they? So as you rethink the design of the UI, all of these things would be a project for a UI designer, UX design. That's what we do. So I think that that is enough. And there's a train coming. I'm sorry if it causes issues on the stream. It's probably gonna honk any second now. Yep, there they go. I don't know if that picked up on the mic or not. But so we don't really need to talk about translating this to XR because it's already an XR game. But if you wanted to think about the future of how we live and it becoming ubiquitous might end up being in the mixed reality space, that's what a lot of people are thinking. So then you could think about that. It's like, how would this translate into a mixed reality game? What would be different? How would this translate to mixed reality? And if you want a side project, if you are wanting inspiration, because you can't think of something to work on, one thing would be, how would this translate to mixed reality? Because if you're using this in mixed reality, you would need to think about surfaces, because you're going to be using, needs to adjust to the surface that you're going to be using. So you would need to think about that, because you could be using your dining room table or your desk instead of a big table in a tavern. So then how would that translate? You would need to consider that. This would be great for a mixed reality because you could play with your friends, you could play out in the world instead of being in a virtual reality experience. You know, you still need to experience the real world, so mixed reality enables you to do both. It would be a great one because any kind of game, tabletop games or anything, would be great in mixed reality. Great application. Not saying they're not great in VR, but they would be great for mixed reality. So yeah, if you want to have a little side project there, you could think about how would that translate. You want to think about surfaces. Your controls, depending on the headset you're going with, your controls would be different. So thinking about cross-platform, how would that translate? So how would that translate cross-platform, across headsets, the ones that are currently on the market, or what would be the ideal, so that we can strive toward what would be the ideal solution for that. And then also, but if you want to think about it realistically as far as career, think about the limitations of the headset. Think about cross-platform design across mixed reality headsets, taking into account best practices for each headset. And I do have an article on cross-platform design. Don't remember if I've made a video on it yet. I may have. Don't remember. I don't remember. If not, one's coming. But that is all I can think of for today. Thank you for watching. If you like what you're seeing, please follow on Twitch. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Tell your friends. And I will be back next week to do another desktop game called Nobody Saves the World. So please look forward to that. And thank you for watching.